Okay, second time tonight. Darn it, I forgot to delete the older stuff, so we'll do it again. Now I've got practice. Boom. Boom. That's crazy. Oh, that's just insane. All right. Part 4 of Chapter 30. Mark and the other guards huddled around Gunny for his meeting. He wanted to go ahead and put a person in the operating... Jeez, I had practice too. OP. Observation post. For crying out loud. And have one roving guard unit of 3 men working tonight, even though they hadn't completed all of the training. He put Scott Simmons in charge of the team that had the 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift, and Mark in charge of the 2 to 8 in the morning shift. He assigned the Okay, forget it. He assigned the OP, that's observation post, and CP is command post. And I'm just going to say OP and CP. So, deal with it. He assigned the OP for 4-hour shifts for the next 24 hours. They'd set the temporary CP up within the hour. Don was getting a CB to place there, and the OP was to call in anything suspicious. He told the rovers to concentrate on the front of the subdivision, but to vary their movements enough that no one could predict where they might be. He told the guards who weren't on duty to have their weapons ready, and if they were called or if they heard any gunshots, to report to the CP as quickly as possible. Gunny announced that Chaparro was trying to get 2 of the towers, guard towers, ready for tomorrow, and that they could use some help getting them up and securing them in the morning. Mark decided to go over and help Chaparro with the guard towers for a while. The kids had the generator to pump water, so they cut the angle iron with hacksaws. Mark's hand was a little stiff from the wasp sting, and the sawing made it throb a little. John, on the other hand, made his head throb a lot. He and Chaparro talked about their disenfranchised neighbor and how best to deal with him. Chaparro thought he needed a swift kick in the seat of his pants. Mark didn't disagree, but felt there had to be a better way to get him back into the fold. Mark's mind drifted off. Someone calling his name brought him back. It was George. Mark, I've been looking for you. George sounded exasperated. Well, you found me. Gunny said that we have to plow under some of the corn we planted. He wants nothing growing for 100 feet from the fence. Something about the guards having a clear field of view or some crap. I thought that was why you were building those towers. Hell, that's almost half of the field we spent all that time tilling and planting. I can't throw away that much work and then face the men who did it. You have to straighten them out, George said. Mark sighed. Let's go find him, he said. When the 2 men found Gunny, it looked like they had to get in line to talk with him. Susan was bending his ear about another guard class. She stated that some of the women were interested in becoming guards, and she wanted him to start a 3rd class. Gunny was hemming and hawing about how he didn't think it was a good idea to have the women in a position where they may get shot at or have to shoot someone. He had no problem with them manning the CP or the watchtowers, but he didn't want them on the gate or as part of the rovers. Susan wasn't buying it, and she let Gunny know in no uncertain terms that she felt his arguments were without merit. Gunny looked over at Mark for help, and while Mark felt for the old Marine and even agreed with him to a degree, he knew a losing battle when he saw one. Mark just held up his hand, slightly waving it from side to side, indicating his unwillingness to jump into this fray. Gunny shot Mark a look that said, "Chicken shit," and agreed to discuss the matter at the next security committee meeting. This seemed to placate Susan for the moment. George, as soon as he saw an opening in the conversation, jumped right in with his own tirade. Mark probably would have let the crop matter wait until later. Gunny had just lost a battle, and he wouldn't be easily swayed to giving in twice in a row. Before George could finish his filibuster about why they couldn't plow under all that work, Gunny launched a volley right back at him about how all the food in the world wouldn't do them a bit of good if they all got killed, because the guards couldn't see someone sneaking into the subdivision because of crops planted right against the fence. Mark could see both men's points. He started asking each of them questions to find what would be acceptable to both. At first, neither would give an inch. Mark thought of both of them to be hard-headed old farts, but deep down he was glad they both took their jobs so seriously. After a while, George agreed to plow under the corn within 50 feet of the fence, and Gunny agreed that they could use that space for crops as long as they weren't over knee-high. The two men shook hands and walked off, George back to the house and Gunny down to Scott's to check on the CP. Susan had been watching this whole production in silence. Is that what it sounded like when Gunny and I were arguing? More or less, Mark answered. Why didn't you get involved in my argument like you did with George and Gunny? Because George and Gunny were both right about what they were saying, so we had to come to some kind of compromise. In your argument, you were mostly right and Gunny was mostly wrong. What do you mean, mostly? Susan bristled. I just mean that women guards do present some problems that we're going to have to deal with. Like what? Well, like the fact that some of the men won't want to be on a post with a woman because they don't think a woman can cover their back as well as a man can. That's bullshit. I didn't say it wasn't. Mark was starting to see that she had a lot in common with Gunny. But some will feel that way. Others won't want to because their wives might not like them spending that much time with another woman. They feel that something inappropriate might happen. Guard duty is serious business. None of the people we put there would do something like that, she argued. You're probably right, but it only has to happen once. This community has become somewhat of a family, and everyone knows everyone else's business. If two of the guards were to have an affair, everyone would know about it, and it would could ruin everything we've worked for so far. Can you guarantee it won't happen? Susan thought for a moment. I don't think it would, but I couldn't guarantee it. We'll think about how we can work things so that we can avoid those types of problems, and we'll talk about it again in a day or two. Okay. I met your husband. Mark wanted to change the subject. He'd had enough controversy for one day. You mean ex-husband, she said. He said you asked him to move back in with you. That lying sack of shit. Yeah, I hate his ass. He showed up this afternoon with no place to go. He's the boy's father. What was I going to do? I offered to let him stay in the spare bedroom for now, but if he keeps telling lies, I'm going to kick his sorry ass out. He seems nice enough. Offered to help out wherever we needed it. Yeah, that's the way it starts. He's all full of hopes and dreams at first. The next thing you know, he's sitting in front of the TV all day, eating ice cream, drinking beer, and buying crap off Home Shopping Channel while you're at work supporting him. You keep an eye on him, Mark. He's no good. Okay, Susan, I will, Mark said as they reached the corner. They each headed home. When Mark got to his house, Jim came up to him and told him that one of the new rifles had broken an extractor. Mark's initial response was one word long, and it cost him $1. He told Jim he'd take it to Jerry and Tony on Monday if he could. He wondered what else could go wrong today and decided to go to bed before it could. He asked if there was any more hot water in the showers and was told no. This time he just thought it instead of saying it. He didn't relish the thought of going to bed without a shower. He went in the camper, took off his dirty clothes, and washed up as best he could in the sink. He got dressed and went in the house to pay his black box. He couldn't remember exactly how much he owed. He took a 10 out of his wallet and put it in the box. That Murphy had sure cost him a lot of money today.